Let me tell you something that might sting a little, but it's the truth. Just because you're older doesn't mean you're automatically in control, and just because he's younger doesn't mean he's clueless. If you're an older woman dating or dealing with a younger man, there are rules to this game, unspoken, but very real. Break them, and you don't just lose him, you lose yourself. Let's talk about what you should never do unless you're ready to hand your power away without even knowing it. Here's the thing. One of the most dangerous mistakes you can make when you're an older woman dealing with a younger man is thinking that you have to bend just to hold his interest. Like somehow, because you've lived more, experienced more, you now have to do less, expect less, demand less, require less, to keep him from drifting away. That right there is the first red flag, not in him, but in you. Because what you're really doing is quietly dimming your standards to avoid losing his attention. And that, over time, chips away at your self-worth like water hitting stone. Let's be real. You didn't come all this way, survive all the heartbreak, the lessons, the growth, just to abandon your blueprint. You already know what works for you. You know what kind of energy you can tolerate, what kind of values you need in a relationship, what kind of communication you expect. But when a younger man enters the picture, maybe he's charming, full of fire, different from what you're used to. You start to doubt that your standards apply here. Maybe he's still figuring himself out. Maybe he's just not there yet. And suddenly, you're giving excuses you would never give to a man your own age. You start tolerating the late replies, the lack of clarity, the immaturity dressed up as freedom. You find yourself laughing off things that hurt you, playing it cool when inside you're confused. You give him more chances than he's earned, just because you don't want to come across as too much. But let me ask you something. When did it become too much to ask for basic respect, for honesty, for intentionality? The moment you start adjusting your expectations to fit his inconsistency, you've already handed him the control. Not because he took it, but because you lowered yourself to meet him at his level. And that's not love, that's survival. That's fear masquerading as flexibility. That's you trying to hold onto a version of connection that isn't even real, just because it feels new. You've got to remember, the right kind of man, regardless of age, will never make you feel like your standards are too high. He'll see them and respect them. He'll understand that your boundaries aren't obstacles, they're instructions on how to love you well. But when you start shrinking yourself to be more digestible, more relatable, more understanding, you stop being fully you. You become an edited version of yourself, and the real you, the one who built herself from the ground up, gets buried underneath all that compromise. And look, I get it. Sometimes it feels easier to let some things slide, to keep the peace, to not rock the boat. But when you're quiet about your needs, you're teaching him how to treat you. Every time you say, it's fine, when it's not, every time you say, I understand, when really you feel disrespected, you're telling him that this version of you is acceptable. And eventually, even you will start believing that this watered down version is all you deserve. But you know better. You've been through too much, grown through too much, to go backwards now. A younger man who truly values you will rise. He'll grow, he'll step up, not because you demanded it, but because your energy makes anything less feel small. So don't dim your light to keep someone who's not ready. Keep it shining. The ones who can handle it will never ask you to lower your glow. One of the easiest traps to fall into when you're an older woman with a younger man is assuming that just because he's interested in you, he's also mature enough to handle you. And that assumption, that's where the disappointment starts. See, age doesn't always come with wisdom, and youth doesn't automatically mean immaturity, but attraction definitely doesn't guarantee emotional readiness. You've got to stop equating desire with depth, because the two can exist in entirely different worlds. A younger man might be drawn to your confidence. He might be in awe of how you move, how you speak, how you carry yourself. And sure, it feels good to be admired. It feels refreshing to be seen through eyes that aren't jaded, that haven't been worn down by life yet. But don't let that admiration cloud your discernment. Just because he's looking at you like you're everything doesn't mean he's ready to hold everything that comes with you. And what you carry, it's not light. It's layered, complex, full of lived experience, and not every man, especially not every young man, is equipped for that. Now, here's where it gets real. When you start filling in the gaps for him, telling yourself, he's just not used to this kind of relationship, or he's never had someone like me before, you start doing the emotional heavy lifting. You start projecting maturity onto him just because you want to believe the connection is deeper than it actually is. But here's the truth. A man's interest in you isn't proof of his capacity for you. You've got to be bold enough to look at how he shows up, not just when things are good, but when things get complicated, when hard conversations come up, when your emotional needs require more than just compliments and chemistry. Does he listen when you speak? Not just nod, not just smile, but really listen. Does he hold space for your opinions, or does he shrink when you show your strength? Does he ask about your past, your growth, your peace, or is he only fascinated by the surface? These aren't small things. These are signs. You've seen them before in other men. Don't let his age make you ignore what your instincts already know. And here's something a lot of people won't say out loud. There's a difference between a man who's curious and a man who's committed. Curiosity is light. It's fun. It asks questions and plays games and keeps everything floating above the surface. But commitment, that's grounded. It builds. It seeks understanding, not just experience. If you find yourself constantly interpreting his behavior, waiting on his clarity, or justifying his absence of depth, what you really have is a man who's not there yet. And that's okay. It doesn't make him a bad person, but it does make him the wrong fit for where you are now. Don't waste your wisdom trying to teach someone how to value it. That's not your job. It's not your role to speed up his growth so he can meet you where you're standing. If he's not ready to handle your strength, your vulnerability, your expectations, that doesn't mean you ask for too much. It means he's bringing too little. And if you settle for that, not only are you selling yourself short, you're teaching him that surface level engagement is enough for someone like you. You've worked hard to become the woman you are. Protect that. Guard it, and only share it with someone who meets you not just with attraction, but with understanding, presence, and emotional readiness. Because when a man is truly mature, you won't have to guess. You'll feel it in how he shows up, not just in how he looks at you. You've spent years building your life, your peace, your pace, your priorities. That didn't just happen overnight. It came from lessons from heartbreaks, from choosing growth over comfort. So when a younger man steps into your world, it's easy to get caught up in the rush, in the energy he brings, in the way he pulls you into his orbit. But here's the warning: don't lose yourself trying to keep up with his world. You've already built your own. Don't trade your foundation for his chaos just because the chemistry feels exciting. What happens too often is an older woman finds herself slowly rearranging her life to fit his. She's saying yes to late nights she's outgrown, entertaining conversations she's evolved past, sitting in environments that don't align with her values, all to feel on it with him. And it might seem harmless at first. You tell yourself, it's just one weekend, or it's not that serious. But what starts small can snowball. Suddenly your calendar looks like his. Your routines are on pause. Your boundaries start bending. And before you know it, you're a guest in your own life. You need to recognize that being with someone younger doesn't mean you have to hit rewind on everything you've matured through. You're not required to fit into a stage of life just to feel connected. If he's still chasing highs, seeking validation, or living for the moment with no thought of tomorrow, that's where he is. That doesn't mean you need to meet him there. It means you need to ask yourself, does this dynamic elevate me or does it distract me? See, what you've created your peace, your structure, your emotional clarity. It's not boring, it's not old. It's stability, it's wisdom. It's the kind of life most people spend years trying to find. And if you abandon it just to merge with someone else's confusion, you're not being flexible. You're losing grip on the very things that make you powerful. The way you protect your time, the way you protect your energy, that's not a barrier, that's a standard. Now, I'm not saying you can't explore or that you should never compromise. Relationships always require some level of adjustment, but there's a difference between compromise and self-erasure. If you're constantly stepping out of alignment with yourself just to stay in alignment with him, that's not love. That's emotional gymnastics. That's pretending. And the more you pretend, the more distant you become from the woman who worked so hard to arrive at this chapter of her life with grace and strength. If he's serious about you, really serious, he won't just want to be part of your highlight reel. He'll want to understand the rhythm of your days, the things that bring you peace, the boundaries you live by. He'll see your life and want to learn how to walk with you in it, not compete with it, not pull you away from it. If he's not curious about your world and only wants to pull you into his, that's not love, that's convenience. You've earned the right to protect what you've built. You've earned the right to say, this is how I love, and if you want to be in it, it's not about me changing. It's about you stepping up. Because when a man really values you, he doesn't just want to be around you, he wants to be part of the life you've created. And if he can't meet you there, you don't slow down. You keep moving forward exactly as you are. Let's talk about something that too many women fall into without even realizing it, especially when there's an age gap. You're the older one. You've lived more, learned more, probably healed from things he hasn't even named yet. So you start naturally stepping into this role, not intentionally, but subtly, where you're coaching him through life. You start guiding, teaching, managing. You become his sounding board, his motivator, his problem solver. And on the surface, it can feel good. You're helping, you're supporting, you're bringing clarity into his chaos. But slowly and quietly, the dynamic shifts, and now you're not in a partnership, you're in a mentorship. Now listen, there's nothing wrong with sharing wisdom, but when you're constantly having to raise the man you're dating, that's not love, that's labor, that's emotional work. That's you carrying more than your half of the relationship. And over time, that becomes exhausting. Because here's what starts to happen. He becomes dependent on your guidance. He leans on you for direction instead of growing into a man who can lead himself. And you, without noticing, begin to carry both roles, the nurturer and the navigator. It sounds noble, right? But it's a trap. Because relationships are meant to be mutual. It's supposed to feel like two people walking together, not one pulling the other along. And the truth is, when you're always fixing, always explaining, always making up for his lack of experience or direction, you don't leave room for him to step into his own power. You're not giving him space to rise, to learn through action, to take accountability. You're giving him answers when he should be asking better questions. And eventually, you're going to start feeling like the parent instead of the partner. And that's when resentment creeps in. You'll start asking yourself, why am I doing all the emotional work? You'll feel the weight of constantly trying to elevate him. You'll crave someone who brings balance, who pours back into you. And here's the hard part, by the time you realize this imbalance, the pattern is already set. He's comfortable relying on you to keep things together. He's never had to show up with full effort because you've been doing it for him. And it's not his fault. Not entirely. It's the dynamic you both created. But it's on you to step back and ask, is this helping him grow or just keeping him small? A real relationship, no matter the age difference, needs to feel like partnership. It should stretch both of you in healthy ways. And if he's not bringing emotional maturity, accountability, and self-awareness to the table, no amount of your wisdom is going to teach him how to be a man. That's an internal decision he has to make on his own. You can model it, you can inspire it, but you can't build it for him. So stop being the fixer. Stop being the emotional life raft. Stop pouring yourself into someone who doesn't even recognize the value of what you bring. If he's truly meant to walk beside you, he'll grow without needing you to hold his hand through every step. He'll meet you at your level, not expect you to keep dragging him toward it. Because a man who wants to be with you shouldn't need to be taught how to respect, commit, or communicate. He should already be doing that on his own without a lesson plan. One of the most dangerous things you can do as an older woman in a relationship with a younger man is start believing that you have to compete with younger women to keep his attention. That somehow, because you're older, you're already at a disadvantage. And that idea, that mindset, it's a lie, one that will strip you of your confidence and push you into a race you were never meant to run. Because here's the truth, the moment you start comparing yourself to someone else, you lose sight of everything that makes you powerful in the first place. You start doing things you'd never normally do. You start overanalyzing how you dress, how you talk, how you move. You begin to question your laugh, your body, your personality, not because something's wrong, but because you're measuring yourself against women who are at a completely different stage in life. You tell yourself they're more fun, more spontaneous, more desirable. And suddenly, your value becomes tied to how youthful you appear instead of how grounded, how wise, how whole you already are. That's not love. That's insecurity feeding off comparison. And let me be clear, your age is not a weakness. It's not something to shrink from. It's the evidence of growth, of resilience, of wisdom learned the hard way. You've made mistakes and bounced back. You've been through heartbreak and came out stronger. You've learned how to protect your peace, how to trust your intuition, how to build a life that makes sense for you. That's not something anyone younger can replicate, no matter how flawless their skin or how wild their energy. What you bring to the table is depth, not just surface. So when you start trying to prove yourself to him, to show him that you can keep up, that you're still fun, still sexy, still relevant, you're handing over your power. You're trying to win a game you already won just by being who you are. And that's the real danger. Because when you start seeking validation from him or anyone else, you're stepping outside of yourself. You become performative. You start adjusting, bending, twisting parts of your identity to stay desirable instead of standing in the strength of your natural magnetism. If he's truly drawn to you, it's not because you remind him of someone younger. It's because you offer something real, emotional safety, perspective, clarity. That kind of substance doesn't age. It deepens. And any man who truly sees you, who's ready for you, isn't looking for someone who mimics youth. He's looking for someone who owns her maturity with pride, who brings calm in chaos, who doesn't flinch when things get real. That's what sets you apart. So stop watching who's liking his photos. Stop wondering if he's thinking about someone else. Stop fighting for space when you are the space. Your presence, your voice, your experience, it's enough. It's more than enough. If he's meant to stay, he'll stay because of how you carry yourself, not because you contorted yourself to compete with someone else. The woman you are today didn't come from nowhere. She was built, she was shaped, and she's not here to prove her worth against anyone else. She's here to be chosen, not chased. And if he can't see that, if he needs flash instead of substance, let him go chase it. Because you're not here to compete, you're here to stand. There's one thing that must never be negotiable, no matter who you're with or how deep your feelings run, your self-respect. That's the foundation. That's the line in the sand. And when you're an older woman involved with a younger man, this becomes even more crucial. Because it's not just about whether he likes you, desires you, or makes you feel alive. It's about whether you continue to honor the relationship you have with yourself, even while navigating the ups and downs of something that might feel exciting but unstable. Self-respect isn't loud. It doesn't always show up in a dramatic exit or some bold speech. Sometimes it looks like a quiet no. Sometimes it's choosing not to respond to a text that came 3 days too late. Sometimes it's you deciding that silence is more powerful than over explaining your worth. It's in the small decisions, the ones no one sees, but that shape everything about how you live and love. Now, in relationships with younger men, especially ones where the balance isn't clearly defined, there's often this unspoken pressure. You start wondering if you should be more patient, more flexible, more tolerant, because he's still figuring life out. You tell yourself, he just doesn't know better yet, or is not used to women like me. And while there's grace and understanding where someone is in their journey, you've got to be careful it doesn't cost you your own boundaries. Because when you start justifying behavior that makes you feel small, you're stepping outside of your integrity. When you silence your voice just to keep the peace, that's not love, that's fear wearing a polite face. Fear of losing him. Fear of being alone again. Fear that maybe this connection is as good as it gets. But here's the truth, no man, no matter how charming, exciting, or passionate he seems, is worth you abandoning your own reflection. And look, sometimes it won't even feel like a big shift. It creeps in. You start accepting last-minute plans. You start shrinking your needs to avoid conflict. You start tolerating behavior you would have never stood for a few years ago. And all the while, your self-respect gets quieter and quieter. Until one day, you look in the mirror and don't even recognize the version of you that's still trying to make it work. But self-respect, it's not about holding a grudge or walking away at the first sign of trouble. It's about checking in with yourself. Asking, is this relationship supporting my peace or disturbing it? Is this man growing with me, or am I just managing him? Do I feel seen, or am I constantly trying to be understood? Those answers don't lie. They don't sugarcoat. And if you listen closely, they'll guide you back to center every single time. Because you don't just need a man who wants you. You need a man who respects the way you carry yourself, who honors the woman you've worked so hard to become, who understands that your time, your energy, your love, it's a privilege, not a convenience. And he only gets access to it if he shows up with the kind of maturity that matches your standard. You don't teach people how to respect you with your words. You teach them by what you allow, what you tolerate, what you let slide in silence. So choose to honor yourself, even when your emotions try to convince you otherwise. Because the one thing that will always protect you, even when love feels uncertain, is your self-respect. And if keeping it costs you the relationship, so be it. That's not a loss. That's a return to who you've always been,